my name's Aaron and I'm going to demonstrate for you today the Purdy Tube Amps MP-18, or the red coat. It's a beautiful handmade tube amp. It's got a very simple circuit, which Purdy Tube Amps always does on all their amps. They have simple circuits and there's not a lot of loading on your tone. There's not a lot of muddying up. There's not a lot of noise. You'll find when you turn off your volume, this amp is really quiet on its own. There's not a lot of hum from the amp itself. I mean, you get some from single coil pickups, but the amp itself, very quiet. You've got three controls: the drive, the tone, and the volume. And basically the drive and volume interact kind of dynamically to get different, to push the tubes in different ways, and the tone is obviously just a tone knob overall for the amp. So this is kind of the Brit circuit, the British style circuit that Purdy makes. It can get some Voxy type bright tones. You can get some maybe Marshall-y overdrive type of tones from this circuit, from the EL84s in the amp. And we're going to get on to some examples now. For the first example, I'm going to do quite a bright kind of Voxy style tone, and I'm going to also switch from my bridge pickup to my neck pickup just to show the amp with the same settings responding to different pickups from the guitar. Now on this one I've got the drive actually turned down and the volume turned quite a bit up. Tone knob is still in the middle, and when the volume is higher than the drive on this amp, that's when there's a certain kind of overdrive that's kind of Voxy to my ear anyway. So here's what that sounds like. Here it is with the bridge pickup. And then I'm just going to switch to the neck pickup and you'll see the difference there. So quite reactive to which pickup you're using. So for this setting, I'm going to flip-flop the two controls. In other words, the drive is at 9 and the volume is down at 3. So you'll find it is a thicker tone, though not as obviously overdriven as the last setting. But it still has a bite and an aggression to it that's quite noticeable, but it's also a quite different tone than the other. There's almost a compression there to this setting, as the tone is just being compressed as it's pushing the tubes there. Still have the tone in the middle, and so you can see the versatility of this amp. I'll go to the neck pickup now and see what that sounds like. So on the neck pickup, it's more pronounced that there is overdrive happening there. You know, it's not a really lo-fi overdrive. It's a very thick, rich overdrive. Not even necessarily noticeable as an overdrive, just a thickening of the tone. So now I'm going to sweep through the tone controls of this amp. The way I've got the tone set is the amp is not overdriving hardly at all, and I'm going to start with the tone all the way down, and then I'm going to play an example and sweep through the tone, and you'll see how dynamic it is. In its lowest tone, like with the tone all the way off, you still have a pretty usable tone, and then with the tone all the way up, you're still not super harsh. So it's a really musical tone control. So here's an example. Tone up to 5 or 6. We'll go with 6. up to 8. And we'll go with the tone all the way up. You can see how dynamic that tone control is. Alright, so one great way to use an amp like this is with a boost pedal. So fortunately, Purdy Tube Amps makes a really great transparent boost pedal with some sort of subtle gain. And what I'm going to do now is push the amp. So you'll see the amp will not be overdriving on its own, and then when I click in this pedal, you'll hear basically the sound of the amp's tubes overdriving. This is not an overdrive pedal, so what you'll be hearing is still the amp's tubes overdriving. So here's the dry tone. And then I click in the Purdy Tube Amps boost pedal. So as with the last example, I'm going to use one of Purdy Tube Amps pedals with this amp. One of the best ways to show the strengths of a Purdy amp is to also use the Purdy pedals, because how they've designed it is the pedals complement the amps, work really well with them. This is the reverb pedal, so instead of having reverb in the circuit, loading your tone, adding loading to the tone, you can add it in after the fact. This reverb sounds great and looks great with this amp. So here's a mellower tone to give you an example of that. Alright, I'm going to really quickly take you through the low and high inputs of this amp. The low input is going to be a lower volume, and it's pushing the amp less hard. Better for lower volume things, or if you don't want to overdrive the amp. And so what I'm going to do is all the settings are at noon again, which is kind of a basic clean tone, and you'll hear the difference between the low and high. The higher input just has more grit, has a little more bite to it. So here's the low. Still a great sound. It's not like it loses anything with that, but when you go to the higher, you get a little more grit. It just depends on what you want. You can get the low or high out of this. Alright, as usual, you can get more information on Purdy Tube Amps at purdytubeamps.com, or you can go to acousticmusicshop.com and order these from Edmonton, Alberta, where they're made. These are handmade amps and handmade pedals. They're very, very complementary to each other, and I'm going to leave you with the Purdy Tube Amps tremolo pedal. Tremolo is obviously a no-brainer with a tube amp, so they've made a great one that you can put in front of your amp, and I'm going to use that as we go out. Thanks for watching.